It seems like there's so much to do before you even roll tape.
Yep, and all the professionals we spoke with couldn't stop saying the same thing. 10 minutes of pre-production saves an hour in production time.
And many times you won't have the opportunity for a reshoot. So if you don't catch the mistakes before they happen, then you're left without a story.
Very good point. Now, let's take a look at the recording process. In this section, we'll look at 3 fundamental recording disciplines: footage handles, overlaps, and shot motion. Students often ask, how much tape should I roll for each shot? This is actually an important question. Whether you edit your footage on a linear tape-to-tape system or a digital editor like the Avid, you'll depend on pre-roll and post-roll handles. Needing 10 seconds of uninterrupted footage before the start of a clip and another 10 seconds at the end, photographers assume the first 15 seconds of any recording as unusable, and will also keep the tape rolling for an extra 15 seconds before they stop the recording. As for the usable portion of the footage, shoot at least 30 seconds of clean video, even if you only plan on using a 3-second clip. So after focusing and composing the shot, lock down the tripod and roll 1 full minute of footage, every time. Motion shots like zooms and pans communicate the relationship between objects by shifting the viewer's focus from one area to another. They also work well when following a particular action. But if the camera's motion is not perfectly smooth, then it will distract the attention and become counterproductive. Try to keep the movement smooth, with a definite starting and finishing point. And for every motion shot you record, also tape a backup still shot. That way, even while practicing and developing your skills, you still have an alternative shot if you should need it.
Now for some final important shooting pointers.
For both man on the street and formal interviews, always stay close to the camera lens. That way, as the subject is facing you, they will be looking slightly off camera instead of giving you an unsightly profile shot.
Always leave a little extra nose room in the direction a person is facing and minimize the space behind them.
When shooting over-the-shoulder shots, remember the rule of thirds, and that photography begins with the feet. By moving the camera, you achieve the 2/3 to 1/3 ratio.
Use different size shots throughout an interview to create a visual rhythm. Remember, close-ups initiate a more intimate feel.
Cutaways are essential for covering jump cuts during editing. Record various reactions, such as acknowledgement, smile, and poise.
When shooting B-roll, capture different perspectives of each image to create visual rhythm in editing, instead of a single, lengthy shot.
And finally, one of the most important rules of video photography, and often a difficult one for students to grasp, crossing the axis. The axis is an imaginary line that fixes the position of the camera in relation to the subjects and creates spatial continuity. For example, in an interview, the axis creates a semicircle in front of the interview. In successive shots, as long as the camera remains in this semicircle, the interviewer will always remain to the left side of the screen with relation to the subject. But if the camera crosses the imaginary axis and tries to shoot from the other side, then the interviewer will appear to have jumped to the right side of the screen, thus breaking spatial continuity.
When shooting movement, be careful not to cross the axis or the subject will appear to move in contradictory directions. By not crossing the axis, you can move the camera freely for alternate shots and keep the motion in the same direction.
When I first started, I was zoom and pan crazy. Okay, I'll zoom in, zoom out, pan this, and I want to make sure I'm showing everything, but not really concentrating on one thing. One habit that I developed is a still photography type of mentality when I'm shooting video.
You're interviewing some CEO of a company. There's only like 5 B-roll shots that you're going to get. You're going to get him on the phone.
There's a wide shot of the place. You always want to establish where you are.
Writing some stuff on a notepad.
Cutaway shots.
You're going to get him talking to a secretary or a colleague.
You want to be able to cut away to certain shots that's not going to disrupt the flow of that piece.
Now start doing some pulls and some pushes, because you're not quite sure what the editor's going to need time-wise. He may just have the time for 2 seconds. So he just go, cut to that wide shot, cut to the close. He's out.
I learned how to edit at the same time I was shooting. So having an editor's mentality helps you when you shoot.
You can't tie the editor in too heavily with you know, these pull-outs or push-ins that maybe take too long. You want to give them to them because maybe they're going to be perfect, but you got to give them other things too.
On a widest shot, you'll see the sky, the mansion, the pool. And there's a little bit of a wind, so the water is moving a little bit. There's a reflection on the water. And just looking at that one shot, it looks like a beautiful shot. So just lock down on that shot and let the action do its own magic. You don't have to do a pan in order to show the whole thing. You can just show it by just one shot and let, get a minute of that. Then zoom in a little bit, lose the sky, lose some of the water, keep a little water, the mansion, and show some of that, and zoom in a little bit more and show a little bit of that. So right now you really got 3 shots, okay? There are 3 different compositions of the same shot.
Shoot the boots coming out of the house all muddy and full of soot. Great cutaway. Generic, can be used anywhere, anytime. Now if the second fireman comes through, his boots come, the first boots walk through, great. Second boots walk through, come up to the guy's face.
You don't just zoom for the sake of zooming. You gotta have a point. If you're gonna shoot a bird, for example, you start on a tight shot of the bird, and you zoom out to show where the bird is sitting, which is on a tree branch in the beautiful Yosemite setting. Then your zoom is working, because with every second that you zoom out, the audience is going to go, wow, oh look, because it's constantly letting them know it wasn't just a bird sitting with a blue sky in the background. He's really sitting on this tall tree in this huge valley in the Yosemite, which is, that's the case of the zoom working for you.
Or the MTV generation, we can accept visual information very quickly. So these shots need to be from the telephone to Mr. Big, from a close-up on the files he has in his hand, pull out, now he's talking to his colleague.
Well, first of all, know the rules.
It's like being a concert pianist. They all started with the scales. You have to know the basics, and then you can forget it.
Once you know them, then it's your choice to break them or not.
15 years ago, you put everything on a tripod, as much as possible. And then, MTV came along, and I mean, I'll tell you, we broke our backs. We broke our backs, changing into this MTV. Suddenly the producers were like, oh, that hour interview that we did last year, well, we're going to do the same thing this year, but you need to do it handheld. And not just handheld, but stooped over with the camera under your arm, not on your shoulder, and and it's like, you go home and you just take a bunch of Advil.